Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian here at the Association of the United States Army's annual Global Force Symposium, the #1 winter meeting of U.S. Army leaders from around the world, as well as industry thought leaders, media, and more. Our coverage here is sponsored by L3 Technologies and Leonardo DRS, and we're here on the show floor on the Oshkosh Defense Stand to talk to John Bryant, who is the president of the company, retired United States Marine Colonel. Sir, always a pleasure seeing you.
Great seeing you again, Vago.
A lot of news going on this show. You guys, let's start with the easy stuff, which is the new product you guys have invested in and brought to the market. Talk to us about the ambulance version of the JLTV.
Sure, Vago. What you see behind me is our LATV ambulance. And as you recall with JLTV, the platform itself filled a critical capability gap in light tactical wheeled vehicles. The JLTV, for the first time, brought protection and extreme off-road mobility together in a light tactical wheeled vehicle. In our mind, that still left a gap, and that critical gap was, what about medical evacuation? What about our wounded warriors? So the LATV ambulance combines JLTV protection with JLTV extreme off-road mobility with a medical evacuation vehicle for the first time. It provides the first armored ambulance with extreme off-road mobility.
And what's the Army's response to it? Because is that for an existing requirement, or is this something you guys have developed to scratch that itch as you see the Army has it?
We developed this under independent research and development. Now, if you go back to the very early days of the JLTV program, there were a number of variants that did not make it into the final program. One of those variants was the 4-liter ambulance variant. So through talking with the warfighting customer, talking with international customers, just listening to the voice of the customer, we heard that as the most significant gap. Hey, once we get this extreme off-road mobility, once we get this great protection, what about ambulances? What are we going to do for that?
And what do you see in terms of numbers for that, for the market, both for the U.S. side, should the U.S. Army decide to exercise that option, as well as internationally?
We don't see it ever matching the numbers of the 4-door or standard utility variant, but we see it as a pretty significant niche because there are very few combat formations in any armed service worldwide that doesn't have significant numbers of ambulances.
Let me ask you about the overall program. You guys, a lot of this depends on run rate and getting up there on the curve to drive individual unit costs down. Talk to us a little bit, though, about some of the Army announcements we've seen. There was an increase, but now there's going to be a decrease. Talk to us about how this is all going to work out, because the Army is looking for a reduction in its buy, which is going to have a material impact on you guys.
Sure, Vago. What we've seen long-term, when you look at the overall requirement, the Army requirement is over 49,000 vehicles. We've seen no change in that. We've watched the Marine Corps requirement grow from 5,000 vehicles up to over 9,000 vehicles. What we've seen recently with the PresBud and the release of the Future Years Defense Plan, we've seen that as the new Big Six programs have created a competition for a finite number of dollars. We've heard about a number of programs being terminated and a number of programs being slowed in the FIDIP. So what we've seen is a slowing of the near-term procurement of JLTV over the FIDIP, down to roughly, on the Army side, down to about $1 billion a year.
And talk to us a little bit about the impact. Like, where are you in terms of what your production rate is now, and where do you go in the event that Congress accepts this reduction?
Right now, we're producing about 11 vehicles a day on the JLTV program. We're still ramping up. We see that ramp up going to the high teens, and with the new profile across the FIDIP, we don't see a significant change. It's a reduction. Directionally, the Army procurement across the FIDIP is being reduced from the $1.2 billion a year down to a little over $1 billion a year. So proportionally, our production would match that.
It's a reduction in the rate of increase, I guess might be a way of putting it.
I would call it just a slowing of the buy across the FIDIP. When you think about the JLTV program, that vehicle is going to be fielded out through the 2030s. So in reality, you just add a little bit of time to the end of the procurement.
Let me ask you, I mean, right, well, that's a material impact. That's a significant reduction. You guys have had successes on the international market as well. Talk to us about some of the opportunities you're pursuing and how large you see the international market for a vehicle of this class.
We've had tremendous international interest in this vehicle. The JLTV we've demonstrated this thing in Europe, we've demonstrated it in the Middle East, we've demonstrated it overseas a number of times, and we have interest in a foreign military sales procurement of JLTV from more than 9 countries right now. I can't go into the individual cases because they haven't been fully developed yet. The UK has been public on choosing their choice of the JLTV to fill their MRVP requirements. But there are a number of countries out there. None of them, of course, have defense budgets like the U.S., right. But in total, they're a significant market for us.
And the UK order gets signed when?
Right now, we're waiting for what's known in the UK as a main gate approval. You've seen what's going on in the UK politically right now. And of course, we're also waiting for a full rate production approval on JLTV, and we expect that at the end of the spring, so sometime after that full rate production approval.
Let me ask you quickly about FMTV. You and I spoke about that a little bit at AUSA in terms of the program. Bring us up to speed on some of the progress we've seen since October.
The program's going very well, Vago. The FMTV A2 that you see behind, well, that I see ahead of me here, that vehicle, it brings real leap aheads in protection, payload, and performance for the medium workhorse of the U.S. Army. Right now, having won that program last February, right now we're producing the 43 test articles. The production's going very well. They're on our line as we speak. We'll provide those vehicles to the Army. They'll test them for about a year before they make a full rate production decision on FMTV A2.
Let me, I overlooked this question, but let me just ask you, it's a JLTV question. After we spoke, there was an OT&E report about some deficiencies in terms of the performance of the vehicle from a DoD perspective. You guys were working solutions to that concurrently when that report came out. Talk to us about where you guys stand right now in terms of the performance of the vehicle and the customer satisfaction with it.
Sure, Vago, and of course that was a report that the service actually received back in October. And as you recall, in that report, a lot of the discussion was around maturity of technical manuals and logistics products. What you didn't hear in that report is the fact that the Army actually did something really smart. When 3 different competitors were working JLTV during the EMD phase of the program, the Army wisely chose not to fund 3 different sets of logistics products. They saved over $28 million with that decision. And when they made that decision, what they did was they accepted the fact that the logistics products would be ready at time of fielding rather than a year earlier at the operational test. So we knew the logistics products were not going to be fully mature. They are fully mature to support the fielding that we're doing right now. Where we stand right now in terms of hearing the voice of the customer, hearing what was said during the MOT&E, during that test and evaluation, we've worked our way down to a small series of upgrades that the Army is looking at right now. These constitute not insignificant requirements changes, but not rocket science either. The Army's interested in a bigger rear window, a bigger window on the rear door. The Army's interested in adding a requirement and adding a muffler to the vehicle. The Army's also interested in a forward-looking camera, for example. There's a number of other smaller ones, recommended changes to the requirement and to the platform that we're looking at. All of them can be easily integrated into the production line and integrated into the vehicle.
Let me ask you two more questions. One, there's a lot of focus on hybrid power. These vehicles now are as much about generating power for the onboard systems, but also for any payloads that would be on them, as much as they are for propulsion. You guys have been thinking and looking at that. You and I have spoken about that over time. What are some of the visions you have for these vehicles, whether it's hybrid electric, whether it's all electric, whether it's fuel cell powered or what have you, as the Army looks to figure out how it can get more power on the battlefield? We visited Redstone Arsenal, talked to Dr. Richard Yaw, who's the director of the high energy laser division there, and we saw the MIHEL program, the mobile experimental high energy laser, which puts all of that, a 10 kilowatt laser on a Stryker vehicle, and yet power is one of the big calculus. Talk to us about where you're thinking about the hybrid revolution as it applies to your product line.
Yeah, I would say, Vargo, that we were actually ahead of the curve in the hybrid revolution as it applies to JLTV. I don't know if you recall, but back in 2010, the ProPulse LATV, that was our diesel hybrid electric version of the LATV. We actually ran that vehicle in the Baja 1000 and successfully completed it. So we have a mature, fully developed diesel hybrid electric version of the JLTV right now. And what that brings to the table is it allows not only better fuel economy, but as you mentioned, it allows onboard generation of tremendous power for any type of system that's power hungry. That ProPulse system that Oshkosh has developed is available in larger versions on our heavier vehicles. We could easily see applying that ProPulse system to power, for example, a 100 kilowatt laser right from the vehicle. It not only removes the need for generators, it also provides that power for an integrated, power-hungry system.
And let me ask you one last question. Futures Command is up and running. How has that changed how you interact? How's that process going? Have all the kinks and the bugs been worked out of the system? Because it was a very significant change. First major command for the United States Army in decades since TRADOC was created. How's that process working in terms of interfacing with the customer, given that you now do it on a headquarters Army basis, you continue to do it on a TRADOC basis, you continue, you guys still touch many commands, but talk to us about how the process is going.
Vargo, the immediate impact that we at Oshkosh saw with the creation of Futures Command was just a tremendous increase in the speed of decision making. We almost immediately saw from Futures Command decisions about requirements. We talked about some of the new requirements on JLTV. Well, the cross-functional team actually made those decisions in a matter of a couple of weeks. When in the past, you know how just normal military bureaucracies work, those type of decisions could last a long time. So they could take a long time. So what we've seen is difficult decisions are being made very rapidly. We've seen requirements decisions are being made rapidly, and they're being made with the warfighter in mind. And from where we sit, the tough nut to crack will be to make sure that the material developer provides that input to Futures Command so that they not only balance quick decision making on requirements, they balance achievability from the material developer. From what I've seen so far, I think all that appears to be in place. I can definitely say as part of it that decision making is happening much more rapidly now.
I know that nobody has noticed this, that you're not from New England, and the Boston Red Sox did a terrific job last year. I was born and raised in New York City, was a New York Yankee fan, but my kids grew up in, and so now I'm a Washington fan with my kids who were both born and raised in Washington, D.C. How do you think the Red Sox are going to do this year, John?
I'm pretty optimistic. I thought the Red Sox were pretty good in terms of how they related with the Patriots. Shortly after the Patriots won the Super Bowl, the Red Sox sent a tweet to the Patriots thanking the Patriots for ending the 3-month championship drought in Boston.
Wow, that's modestly said, John. And Gronk's retirement, what do you think that's going to mean for the Patriots? Terrific team and just an incredible player.
Just some really tough shoes to fill, and he's just so much a part of the culture of that team. Right now, that's what my family's talking about back in Boston. They're talking about Gronk.
John, always a pleasure, sir. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Best of luck on the programs, and may the best team win the World Series this year.
Thanks so much, Fargo.